let's just take a quick look at our schedule. So going back, so Matthew, you were asking a little bit about the about where we are.
Yeah, I haven't been able to make every meeting. That's why I was
Right.
just asking.
Right. No, right. And so remember, guys, that I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by the videos because there are a lot. Instead, I'm hoping that you'll feel like, oh, yay, I've got options, right? So let me just remind you of what we have available to us on the chapter 6 front. So if you go under week 8, you will see, scrolling toward the bottom, you'll see one of our class videos. We'd already moved online at that point, so this was a learn by doing. And then this overview of chapter 6 is just a straight lecture. In fact, it's going to look a lot like what I'm about to do with chapter 7. And then there's another sort of a tutorial about the truth definitional origin of our rules. There are some old in-class videos. Those may or may not be helpful. And then moving on to last week, we worked, so all of these videos are really just 1 or 2 class sessions chopped up in order to get them uploaded in a timely fashion or timely-ish fashion to YouTube. And then there's some practice and some tutorials. Right?
Do you have any video on how to use a program you were just using, or is it really easy?
Yeah, so my advice, so let me also remind you of this. So if you go to the Grade Grinder site, and this is just a reminder, go to the Grade Grinder site, log in, click on online course materials, and you'll see, or actually, hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Hint and solution on the right.
Yeah, well, hints and solutions is for exercises, for textbook exercises. There are some, here we go, software help. So you go under software help, there should be some videos here. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. You can also, of course, look at the Fitch tutorials that I've posted, but I mean, in a lot, you guys will know what works for you. Some people say, I really like the videos that the authors provide. I'm good with learning through those. I don't need all the other stuff. And then some of you say, no, I don't like I want you to use what's going to work for you. So the more you know what your options are, the better. So yeah, this was something that we didn't talk about earlier in our today's meeting, but I'm glad, Matthew, that you asked. You've got, some tutorials here. And then again, don't forget that there are videos for each of our chapters. Dereje, was it you who just mentioned hints and solutions?
Yes.
Yeah. So one thing you guys should think about too is if you go into hints and solutions, you'll see that our authors have given us these are, by the way, these are old versions of Tarski's World. This is like the original version of Tarski's World. But you'll see how they try to help us out, or they will simply work an exercise for us. So that might be useful to you too. Thoughts?
Someone asked a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. Hold on just a second. Let me see. Thanks, Matthew. You guys have to remind me about these things. I can't keep things straight. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. All right, so here we are in chapter 7. So remember we talked about the fact that the negation, conjunction, and disjunction are connectives that help us make increasingly complicated sentences, right? So we start with our atomic sentences, and then we build compound sentences out of them. In chapter 7, we get the last two connectives. These are actually not truth functionally essential to the work that we're doing. In other words, we have a complete system without them, and that's because the conditional and the biconditional are connectives that are built out of, in fact, the existing connectives. That said, there are two reasons to use them. One is, well, they appear in every logic textbook, but the more substantive reason is that they are not only useful shorthands for us, but they are also reflective of ordinary ways that we speak, right? So what we're going to do today is finish up with introducing these two connectives, the truth tables for them. Then we're in a position to work the same sorts of exercises with the conditional and the biconditional as we did in chapter 4. So we can talk about, tautologies, we can talk about tautological equivalences, we can talk about tautological consequences, or the concept of tautological consequence in relation to these connectives. And then we can employ the connectives in inference rules just like we did in chapter 6. Then we have a complete set of rules. So when you look at our rule sheet, right, when you look at our rule sheet, you'll see that we have, just like we had for negation, conjunction, disjunction, we have intro and elim rules for the conditional and the biconditional. So that's where we're headed. Okay, so first, let's talk about the symbol for the conditional. And I'm going to use the term conditional and material conditional interchangeably. Don't worry about the distinction between the two for right now. We use, in our version of the system, an arrow to represent the if-then statement or the conditional statement. The left side of the arrow is called the antecedent, and the right side of the arrow is called the consequent. So that's just going to be language that we use, and if it's not familiar to you already, or if it's uncomfortable right now, because lots of times when we just introduce terms and definitions without any kind of real context, sometimes we will find ourselves a bit confused, but we'll get used to it. So most typically the arrow is the symbol that we use for an if-then expression. But we are going to use other expressions. So for example, if we say that eating a potato chip is sufficient for me to have something in my stomach, we would symbolize, in terms of our logical notation, the notion of a sufficient condition in terms of the antecedent or left side of the arrow, the antecedent of a conditional claim. So here are some examples. If there's fire, there's oxygen. Then notice the equivalence. This is why I mentioned earlier, or these are examples of why I mentioned earlier that the arrow is really just another way of asserting a disjunction, right? And it's not just the disjunction, it's the disjunction with a negation on the left side. Either there's no fire or there's oxygen. If you're a living human being, then you must be breathing. Either you're not a living human being or you must be breathing. And then notice now the negation of the left side of a conditional is equivalent to just the disjunction itself, right? So if you don't have the discipline to get to work on time, then you'll be fired. Either you have the discipline to get to work on time, or unless you have the discipline to get to work on time, you'll be fired, right? Now, given our time today, I think we'll just end with the truth table for the conditional, and then we'll pick this up on Thursday, because I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with what we've been talking about and see what sorts of questions, problems, confusions you might have. There are two ways I'm going to ask you to think about the truth table for the conditional. One is in terms of the idea that the if-then sentence can be thought of as the relationship between the premise or premises and conclusion of a valid argument, right? So take a look at row 1, 3, and 4, and then take a look at row 2. So where the antecedent is true and the consequent is false, the conditional claim itself is on a truth table false. And we can make sense of this in terms of validity, because we know that an argument is valid when it's impossible for the conclusion to be false while the premises are true. When the premise or premises is or are true and the conclusion is false, the argument is invalid. Similarly, when the antecedent is true and the consequent is false, the conditional claim itself is false. Then the other way I'm going to ask you to think about the truth table is in terms of these intuition pumps, if you will, with respect to the examples that I offer you. And the reason why I ask you to think about these examples is because you'll notice we can come up with sentences that do not bear out what the truth table tells us. But let's set that aside for right now. We agree that the sentence, if San Francisco is in California, then it's in the United States, is true. We agree that if San Francisco is in California, then San Francisco is in France is false. We agree that if San Francisco is in Massachusetts, then San Francisco is in the United States is true. And we agree that if San Francisco is in Massachusetts, then San Francisco is in New England is also true. Notice that each example comports with or corresponds to the respectively first, second, third, and fourth rows of the truth table, right? So they should give you some confidence about the what might feel like a peculiarity of, let's say, row 4. How could it be that when the antecedent is false and the consequent is false, the sentence as a whole is true? That doesn't make any sense, right? I hope that those intuition pumps actually do what they're supposed to do. That said, we will talk a bit about why you might find the truth values a little bit uncomfortable, right? So we'll save that. But before we leave, I want to ask you guys, hold on, let me find my cursor. Here it is. Okay. How are you doing? What do we think so far about chapter 6? Do you have any questions, problems, confusions that you want to raise before we break off? And also let me know if you have any discomfort about the way we're working. If there's stuff that I'm doing that you want me to do differently, if there's stuff that is working you want me to do more of, I mean, please let me know, because, typically I don't, when I work online, in terms of teaching online courses, it's not like we run virtual classrooms. So, I've been fumbling a bit, and if there's stuff that I'm doing that's not working, I want to know. I also want to know if there is stuff that is working so that I can do more of that for you. So please don't be shy about, helping me to make things go better.
I have a question about the meetings.
Yeah, tell me.
I don't know which one I tried going to, if it was the last one, but is it always Tuesday, Thursday? Because I don't know what time. I guess it's 11:10, but I was there and like no one else was in there, so I don't know if I went on a wrong link or something.
Matt, I don't know. I don't know if I'm right. My suspicion is you might have gone to an office hour link.
Oh, okay. So it's
Yeah.
always the virtual classroom link, I
Yes,
guess.
yes, yes. So office hours links are for everybody, whether it's everybody with whom I work, and then virtual classroom links are just for a specific class.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'm around. I'm going to get ready to go to another class, but I am around. So as usual, if you have questions, problems, confusions, let me know. I don't want you to feel, like you're out there all on your own. Okay. All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you. You have a good one too. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.